For generations, gardeners have been told that soil improvement begins with simple layering: cardboard down first, compost on top, mulch to finish the job. It sounds almost too easy, like nature itself will do the rest of the work while we step back and wait for the soil to transform. But what if that common method is quietly slowing everything down beneath the surface? What if the difference between sluggish soil and a thriving underground ecosystem is not what you place on the ground, but how you prepare it before it ever touches the earth? In today's episode for Nature's Flora, we're diving into a practice that completely changes how soil life responds to cardboard mulch systems. This is not theory. This is a field-tested approach that reshapes how quickly worms arrive, how fungi spread, and how fast organic matter becomes living soil. If you care about building rich, self-feeding soil systems that actually work in real garden conditions, take a moment right now to Media Group, thriving vegetable garden with rich dark soil, close-up of hands holding living soil full of organic matter stock. Distribute equally. Like this video, share it with someone who's serious about gardening, leave a comment with your experience, and subscribe to Nature's Flora for more practical proven soil building knowledge. Once that foundation is set, we can get straight into what really matters beneath the surface. Cardboard is often treated as a passive weed barrier, a simple sheet of carbon meant to smother unwanted growth while slowly breaking down into the soil. On paper, it makes sense. It is widely available, easy to lay down, and appears to decompose naturally over time. But, what is often overlooked is that cardboard is not biologically active when it is first applied. It is dry, sterile, and structurally resistant to water penetration due to its layered corrugated design. That internal structure creates hidden air pockets that behave like barriers rather than bridges for life. Instead of becoming a living interface between soil and mulch, dry cardboard often becomes a temporary shield that delays biological colonization. Worms do not move in, because the environment beneath them remains inactive for far longer than expected. The biggest misconception in no-dig gardening is that moisture alone is enough to awaken cardboard. While watering after installation does help, it does not solve the deeper issue. Water applied from above rarely penetrates evenly into the inner flutes of corrugated cardboard. Some areas become saturated while others remain dry for weeks. This uneven hydration slows microbial activity, and without a strong microbial presence, earthworms have little reason to migrate upward. Worms are not attracted to cardboard itself but to the bacterial and fungal films that form as decomposition begins. When that biological process is delayed, so is the entire soil-building cycle beneath it. The shift happens before the cardboard ever touches the soil. Instead of laying it down dry, the material is fully submerged in biologically active water for a full cycle of soaking. This is typically done for 24 to 48 hours, allowing the fibers to become completely saturated while also absorbing microscopic life present in the water. When cardboard is soaked in nutrient-rich pond water, it becomes something entirely different. It is no longer just carbon waiting for life, it becomes an inoculated structure already carrying microbial populations into the soil system. Once laid down, decomposition does not wait for colonization, it begins immediately. The result is a much faster biological response from fungi, bacteria, and soil fauna, especially worms that detect microbial density shifts in the environment. Once this pre-soaked cardboard is placed on prepared soil and covered with compost and mulch, the underground response changes noticeably. Fungal strands begin spreading through the fibers almost immediately. Bacterial colonies multiply along the softened layers, and protozoa begin feeding on emerging biofilms. Worms follow quickly behind this microbial surge. Instead of waiting weeks for conditions to improve, they begin migrating upward within days. As they move through the softened cardboard layer, they pull organic material deeper into the soil, leaving behind castings that rapidly improve structure and fertility. Over time, the cardboard ceases to exist as a separate layer. It becomes integrated into the soil profile, transforming into stable humus far more quickly than dry applications ever achieve. In a typical backyard garden, this method begins with selecting clean, flattened cardboard and fully submerging it in a container filled with pond water or another biologically active water source. Once fully saturated, it is laid directly onto cleared soil in a single overlapping layer. It is then immediately covered with a few inches of compost followed by a protective mulch layer. This sequence is critical because it locks in moisture, protects microbial life from drying conditions, and maintains consistent decomposition pressure across the entire surface. Within warm weather conditions, visible biological changes begin within the first week, and worm activity becomes noticeably higher within a few weeks. So, one of the most common mistakes is actually overlayering cardboard. When too many sheets are stacked, oxygen flow becomes restricted, which, slows microbial colonization and can create stagnant zones beneath the surface. Another mistake people sometimes make is using chemically treated or contaminated water sources for soaking. This, unfortunately, can introduce unwanted compounds into the soil ecosystem. It's also important, not to leave soaked cardboard exposed for too long before covering it, since drying can actually partially reverse the activation process. When applied correctly, this method does more than just increase worm numbers. It actually accelerates the entire soil formation process. Organic matter integrates faster, soil aggregates form more efficiently, and, moisture retention improves significantly over time. What starts as a simple cardboard layer gradually evolves into a biologically active interface that supports long-term soil regeneration. The difference isn't just visible in the first season, but really compounds year after year as microbial networks stabilize and expand. In the end, the real transformation isn't in the cardboard itself, but in how quickly life takes control of it. If you found this guide valuable, make sure to subscribe to Nature's Flora, share this with someone building their own garden system, and stay connected for more real-world soil methods that actually work.